In this video, I'm going to be talking about scales. Now, scales can be quite a complicated subject. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to talk about the construction of scales, just very simply, and leave most of the work to the listener here, because it would be too long to work it all out. So we're just going to talk about the construction of, specifically of the major scale, because that's the one that you usually need to do first in theory. So we're just going to start with the keyboard here. This is the same thing we did when we were talking about tones and semitones, because scales are all about tones and semitones. So the first scale that we're going to talk about is C major. And C major is basically just the white notes on a piano. So you get C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and there's no accidentals at all. There's no sharps, there's no flats, just straight like that. So let's just have a look at the structure of this. So between C and D, there's a whole tone. Between D and E, there's a whole tone. But between E and F, there's a semitone. And then between F and G, there's a whole tone, but we'll leave that for a moment. Between G and A, there's a whole tone. Between A and B, there's a whole tone. And between B and C, we have another semitone. And then in the middle here, we have another whole tone. So this just shows the overall structure of the scale. So we have one block, tone, tone, semitone, and another block, tone, tone, semitone, and these are separated by a whole tone. So that's basically all that one actually needs to know about scales. But we'll just work out a little bit more of this just to show quickly how this works. So the key for the structure of the major scale is just this tone, tone, semitone. And that little group of four notes is actually called a tetrachord, which just means a chord made up of four notes, basically, or a group of four notes. But it's important to remember that structure. One way to remember it is just by looking at your right hand as you hold it up in front of you. So tone, tone, and then there's the little finger, semitone. So that's one way to remember it. Okay, so now, here it goes. What we're going to do is we're going to write out a sequence of notes here. So we start at C, D, E, F, so tone, tone, semitone. And we're going to carry on G, A, B, C. G, A, B, C. So if we carry on the sequence, so we have tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone. If we carry on counting, if you recall, there's a gap of a tone between each chunk. So our next chunk will start on a D. We go D, E, that's a tone, and then from E to F sharp is another tone, and then from F sharp to G is another tone. So that's what you get if you just carry on the sequence. But let's see what happens if you count backwards. So now, when you go backwards, remember this again is going to be a whole tone step in between these little groups. That's each time a whole tone step in between there. So we need to go one whole tone backwards. So a whole tone backwards from C is semitone, whole tone. So let's just go B flat. Now we could call that A sharp, but it should become clear later on why that would be a little bit difficult. So we'll just call it a B flat, and then we need a semitone in front of that, so that's going to be an A. And then a whole tone in front of that, so that's going to be a G. And a whole tone in front of that. So it's going to be an F. So now one can go check and just check that it should, each one of these patterns should be tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone. In fact, I'll mark it with the colors. Tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, and tone, tone, semitone, and finally tone, tone, semitone. So it's just important to check that each time is consistent. And then in between each one we have a tone and a tone and a tone. So that's the structure of the major scales. But let me just quickly just work this into a proper scale. So we said that our scale was this: C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. That's our C major scale. So one can see that it starts and ends on the note that has the name of the scale. So C major starts and ends on C. And then if we carry on, so if we start here, we start and end on G, we get G major. And so G major will be G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. And the same way, if we go from here to here, start and end on F, we get F major. And so that's the first three scales laid out there. But now we can carry on this pattern. So we can carry on D, E, F sharp, G. The next note will be an A, because we need the tone gap there. And if we were to carry on here, let's get a bit of pen over here. If we were to carry on here, we would count backwards, 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 until we get to B flat. Incidentally, the next one over here would be an A. So one can carry on counting like that. And if you do that, if you carry on counting, what you'll see eventually is that it all comes back and loops on itself. So it makes a circle. And because this circle, because there's 12 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, we don't count that one again because that's the same as that. Because there's 12 notes, and this little pattern loops through all 12, we can just draw it like a clock. So, at the 12 o'clock position, we're going to put C. So that refers to C major, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And then as we walk up this way, each time we're going to go 5 notes up. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So this one over here will be, let me do the colors again. This one over here will be G major. In fact, let me draw the colors consistently, just to not confuse the matter too much. So C, and then over here, we'll have G major. And then as you go backwards, each time you'll count 5 backwards. So 1, 2, 3, well, 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, this is the 5th note counting backwards. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, but that's the same as going 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4. So F is the 4th note going up, and F is the 5th note going down. We'll discuss this a little bit later when we do intervals. But That's the basic thing. So in other words, 5 notes up there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gets us over there, and 5 notes going that way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gives us that one. Now, usually when you count intervals, this is why it's like confusing. Usually when you count intervals, you won't count intervals backwards that way. You always count that way. So from C to F is a fourth. It's not a fifth going backwards. So, but when we get to intervals, we'll discuss that a little bit. Great. So then, if we just carry this pattern on here, we'll have D over there, and I mentioned if we go backwards there, we'll have B flat. Oops. We'll have B flat as our next one over there. So now one can just carry on writing this series to just get all the way around the circle. So what's the next one around? Pattern. We go D, and then we go A, and then the next one will be A, B, C sharp, D, E, and then the next one will be E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, and then finally we'll get over here. Oops, we missed out green. Okay, anyway, we'll just make the pattern go all funny. So there'll be an F sharp over there. And if we carry on down here, we'll just go E flat, and then A flat, and let's use red for the last one, will be D flat. So I'll let that be an exercise for the listener, just to work out all of these ones in the middle. But they do work out, I can assure you. So basically, for scales, you need to study, you need to learn this pattern, all 12 of these scales, and the notes that are in them. But basically, what the pattern that emerges from this is that if you look at C major, the one up there, that has no sharps and no flats. So it's a C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. As you go this way, you go G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. You add one sharp to get G major. So G sharp has one sharp, G major has one sharp, D major will have a second sharp, and it will be D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. And so it carries on like that. And so each one will have, so this will have no sharps, no flats, 1 sharp, 2 sharps, 3 sharps, 4 sharps, 5 sharps, 6 sharps, and this will either have 7 sharps, or if we carry on the other way, this will have 1 flat, 2 flat, 3 flats, 4 flats, 5 flats, 6 flats, 7 flats. So let's just rename these with alternative names. So this can also be C sharp, and just put that over there. And this one can also be G flat, and this one can also be C flat. So this is a little bit complex, theoretically speaking, but the important thing is just to learn this pattern. Now, I've said that I don't really like rhymes, but to learn the pattern of sharps and flats, it is really useful to use a rhyme. There are other ways to do it as well. One way to do it is to just remember that this is the sequence of sharps. So it'd be F sharp, G major will have an F sharp, D major will have an F sharp and a C sharp, A major will have F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp, and so forth. so in principle that does work, but it's just you have to learn the pattern first, and I feel it can be confusing to do it that way, to learn the sharps that way. If it does work for you, and if that makes sense for you, you can certainly do it that way as well. Now the pattern for the flats is a little bit simpler if you want to do it that way. It goes B flat, E flat, A flat, E flat, G flat, C flat, F flat at the end. So that's one way of doing it. I feel it's safer to just learn a rhyme and to just learn it by rhyme. So the rhyme goes, Father Christmas gives Dad an electric blanket. And for the flats it goes, blanket explodes and Dad gets cold feet. So, Father Christmas gives Dad an electric blanket, and then backwards it goes, blanket explodes and Dad gets cold feet. Okay, so this is really one of these things where no amount of explaining will really make it all that much easier. The important thing is to play around with it, see how it works, play around moving from one group to the next, but ultimately, one way or another, whether you do it by remembering on the actual circle itself or by having little rhymes, one just has to learn these scales. But the nice thing about it is once you've learned the scales, it really unlocks all of the other theory that follows afterwards. Everything else that follows afterwards is pretty easy in comparison. So it's quite a lot to learn, quite a lot to take in, but have fun with it. Okay?